mentioned on, I think you mentioned on DSG, you have a topic you wish to bring up. So
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah. I had a very good passage in a book, Alan composed of my travelogue, about being aware of defilements. And Ajahn said, I do not think of defilements as so ugly. They are just realities. There should be understanding of them. Why should our first objective not be right understanding? I do not understand why people are so much irritated by their defilements. One is drawn to the idea of self all the time, while one thinks about it whether one has less defilements or more. There is no understanding, but merely thinking of kusala and akusala as ours. So I found this such a good reminder that also akusala is by conditions and a reality and not self. But some people may object and say, yes, but we read, and that is true, we read that the Buddha said to the monk, be mindful, and it's just the slightest way of akusala is see danger in the slightest thought. That is a beautiful text that applies to the monk's life who has to live like an arahat, who is without defilements. But this passage we should see in the right context. Otherwise, we are bound to have misunderstandings. So I see it as a very good reminder that also akusala is a reality and we should not push it away. If it is not known as only a conditioned reality, it can never be eradicated.
Is there something wrong? Is that misprinted or what? Because I think that even just very subtle akusala is akusala.
Yeah, that's true.
Like we see what we don't see as it is, it's like the monk can see the very small akusala as so big as a great cloud, something like that. We cannot change the reality, which is unwholesome at all. It's so unwholesome, no matter what kind of akusala is. That is my understanding.
Yes, Ajahn, and I think that's what Nina was saying, that if the akusala has arisen, it's there to be understood. It doesn't have to be the object of dosa.
But nobody can change the characteristic of akusala at all.
Correct.
Even when it is the object of understanding, right understanding can see it as it really is so ugly, even it's so little.
And the characteristic of the citta, the akusala citta, is also the same as the characteristic of, for example, other namas.
Otherwise, how can the anusya be eradicated if we don't see the danger of it, the ugliness of it?
Perhaps you could say a bit more about danger or ugliness as a characteristic of akusala citta, Ajahn.
Yes, but what you mean might be that we shouldn't be discussed because it's akusala at that moment, because instead of that, there can be the understanding of the ugliness.
So
akusala.
not dosa, but understanding.
Mm.
And
I think the
I
point
think that is Nina, that is the point you were trying to make, I think. What, is that not right?
That's right. So we should see this passage in the context and not despise akusala as not worthy of object of understanding.
And perhaps the point was that when irritated by the akusala, then it's not understanding at all or being disturbed by it or taking it for mine or the others. It's not the understanding of Dhamma. So the main point always is that it is Dhamma, it is anatta, it's not mine or the others. And like we discussed many times, that's why when reading sutta or thinking about the teachings, if it is mine or theirs, kusala and akusala, it's not the study of Dhamma. So that is the main point. But the study of Dhamma means the understanding of Dhamma just as it is. And so if we're talking about akusala, even the slightest annoyance or the slightest attachment, it's akusala. It has to be understood. The harm, the danger has to be known for what it is. So the 2 points. One is the understanding of what appears, not taking it for belonging to this or that person. But the second point is understanding the nature just as it is, what is so dangerous in life, even now.
And Nina, I just wanted to make one comment on your opening remarks, and that was you said that the text about seeing danger in the slightest fault applied to the monk's person living the monk's life, and this may have been the point Ajahn was just making. I don't think that's the case. I think the point there is that where akusala is the object, then any level of kusala is seen as a danger, not just the strong akusala, for example, but it doesn't mean one looks for the subtle akusala, but it means that if there is awareness and understanding of akusala of any level, it is seen as a danger.
Yes, even a slight attachment to self, or I take it for my kusala or akusala, is a danger really if it is not understood as it is.
And when it's taken for my akusala or kusala, then it's also taken for the others, akusala or kusala. And there is the idea of this person or that person's kusala and akusala. It's not the understanding of Dhamma right now.
That's very good, yeah. Like we discussed, a person who continued to be rude, but it's not the person really, it's the chitta. So then it really helps.
Or like a... Go ahead, Gab.
Oh, sorry, sorry. Not yet. And my camera doesn't work, so later I will say something. But this was just not really a remark.
Okay, we'll look forward to hearing from you later, Gabby. But this was a mistake, right?
Yes, that was a mistake.
And I have just one further comment to add to what you said, Nina, and that is that when we talk about the akusala jittas and the kilesa and so forth, that includes, of course, wrong view. So wrong view is one of the kinds of akusala that arise from time to time. And it is to be understood. It's not that one needs to think about not having the wrong view, just
Right.
understanding it if and when it arises.
So it's a subtle point, and that's why Ajahn repeats all the time, Dhamma is so subtle.
And we say that even the akusala is so very dirty, very ugly, but it shouldn't be the object of disgusting, because at that moment it is one's own, or the moment of akusala. Instead of that, there can be the understanding of the akusala as it is, as so very ugly, with right understanding, not with akusala disgusting or whatever is there at that very moment, irritation or what.
Yes, and I think that was the point in what you had said, like maybe this was what Nina was referring to. If one says, oh, why be so irritated by the akusala, or why mind it, or I don't mind about it, it doesn't mean not understanding the danger, but pointing out that the dosa about the akusala, the minding or the clinging to the kusala, is just adding more akusala on and on, adding fuel to the fire. So it's not the understanding of the reality as it is, as Dhamma.
Right now, it can be this moment. Seeing the danger of akusala with understanding, not with irritation.
Does that mean, Ajahn, that when kusala citta is the object of awareness and understanding, that there is the seeing of the benefit of kusala?
It's there, so very subtle, no matter anytime, anywhere.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Only I can understand that moment as it is, as not self or anyone at all. No matter how ugliness it is, how ugly it is. It's a reality. So ugly, but it's a reality only. Not belong to anyone at all.
And it's the same with kusala, like at a moment of understanding of metta, when it appears, it's kind, it's friendly, no thought of oneself, but it's a Dhamma. It's not my metta. It's not anyone's metta. It's not Ajahn's metta. So it's the quality that is understood just as it is, as beneficial, different from the ugly dosa.
And it's so good to clear up the very subtle point of the teachings, to have more right understanding of reality as it is, as no one at all, no self. Is it clear now?
Oh, there is no doubt, because you explain it very well in the same passage that you talk about defilements. It's very clear. And then seeing the benefit of kusala, you emphasize all the time the perfections, that the perfections are so very necessary at the same time for the development of understanding.
Kusala cannot understand the truth of whatever is there now. That's why understanding the danger of akusala and conditioned moment of being kusala
It might be helpful, Nina, if you post the passage on DSG just to make sure that it's clear, because like Ajahn found, it did sound a little unclear at the beginning that there was no saying that that akusala wasn't harmful and dangerous, but just that the aversion and minding is so unhelpful.
That's the point that Ajahn brings.
Yes.
And that is really very clear, I find. I just see it a very good reminder. And Carmen asked, where do I find this passage? Well, that is the book that Alan composed of my travelogues, Understanding Realities Now. There I quoted many passages that Ajahn explained the Dhamma.
Thank you.
And I think the emphasis is always on what appears now, because when akusala arises, when there's minding about this or that, or there is anger or disturbance or any kind of akusala, there's thinking on and on about the story, but what appears now, that is always the point. Is there any understanding of it, of what appears now as just Dharma? There was a very good illustration of this when we were in Vietnam. One of our Vietnamese friends, she told the story about a sutta, and it was a sutta about karma. And it was a long account, but basically a lady had hoped and wished that by doing a certain deed, she would get a certain result. Mai will remember it. And in the end, it seemed that she got that result by way of a happy rebirth, and she couldn't understand this because we learn that the hoping and wishing is akusala and so on. And she asked Ajahn to explain this sutta and the point. And Ajahn's answer to her was, what appears now? The point is we think about this and that account, this and that story, usually with ignorance, usually with clinging, usually with aversion, and think that the meaning has to be clarified. But what about at this very moment of thinking? What is the reality now? Is there any understanding now of the doubt as Dhamma, of the aversion as Dhamma, of the clinging as Dhamma, of whatever appears, seeing now, hearing now, what appears now? And so I think it's always the main point, the coming back to understand what appears now just as it is, not anyone, not my akusala, not my kusala, but just the reality at this very moment.
Yeah, it's always the moment, because we always get confused by situations, persons, and that's why we have a lot of aversion just involved in the stories, instead of knowing this moment now. And that's why Ajahn always draws us back to this moment, so that there is no misunderstanding.
And I think that when there is the understanding what is there as it is now, it can condition moment of understanding whatever will be or whatever will come next or later. Because when there is understanding of now seeing as just the reality which arises and experiences, it's not enough only seeing, because the characteristic of the reality which arises and experience is from moment of birth, never lost at all. Each moment is there, unknown, as it's not that and that and that. It's that chief, the reality which arises one after another, experiences an object unknowingly. For example, after birth moment, does any object appear? Impossible, because it's not the object through the eye or ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So how can it appear? And that's the moment of thinking, considering about the reality which arises and experiences an object. Because when the object appears, there's the attention to that object, not the reality which experiences the object. For example, seeing right now, even it is that which arises from birth, no matter the object is through the sixth way or not, it arises and experiences an object. If it's known, there can be the understanding of any reality in the future or from now on of that which arises and experiences the object. So when the object changes from not appearing to appear, it's another moment of that which arises and experienced by different conditions, whether it is the eye process or the ear or whatever. That's why it's the stream of that which experienced the object not appearing. And then object appears, and then again, no object appears, and then again, that's all. That's why even when it's there, experience any object through any doorway, it's not known as it's the reality which arises and experiences that. But the object or the other object, like seeing, we try to think about it. Seeing sees now, while the object appears. So what about the understanding of seeing out of the object? That's why there are so many moments for considering little by little to get closer and closer to understand what is there. As it is a little more getting closer to, for example, seeing as that which is not seen. And no one can stop conditions to be aware of the object which is seen, or the seeing the reality which experiences an object, while when there's no seeing process, the object does not appear, and so on. little by little, just very little by little, from hearing, considering a little more on and on of what is there now. Because reality are so very subtle, it does not appear as it is. That's why when seeing the reality which sees appear, what about the understanding? Doubt or what? Different reality which experiences the object, not the chief of that which at that moment experiences the object. So it's moment to moment, time to time, to consider by conditions a little more about what is there as it is. And thinking, considering is different from directly aware of the object by conditions. Who knows what object will be the object of direct awareness with understanding accumulated to understand a certain object right then by conditions. That's why hearing and considering a little more develop its way to realize the truth unknowingly. It's a moment, even if so very little understanding is there. Otherwise, without that moment, it's impossible to get closer to understand the truth of what is there from birth, experiences an object at moment when it arises. Each word of truth can condition moment of considering, understanding the nature, the reality, the characteristic of a reality right now, one by conditions. No name. At the moment when it is aware and begin to understand the truth. A little bit more of understanding until it develops to be a moment of directly understanding with direct awareness. So very little in the beginning, but it's there, object of understanding developed. That's why patience and our other paramis is needed, because akusala cannot understand any reality, anything at all.
And that's why, as we were discussing with Alan last week, I think it was, the test is always now of what appears at this moment, no matter it's akusala or kusala or seeing or visible object, it's what appears now. So this is the test of the understanding, not what is in the book, but what appears right at this moment.
Yes, and that's why Ajahn always ask, is the seeing now? Because they're seeing all the time, but we know so little about it.
It's there, the reality which experiences an object.
here and now, this very moment of experiencing what is seen, the Dhamma, and gone. And it arises again and again, but not my seeing or anyone's seeing.
Even when the object does not appear, it's there. No one can stop it arising, experiencing unknowingly, because the object does not appear, but it's there, experiences an object, like moment of bhavanga and birth moment.
And it's a relief and a joy to understand it as it is, as just a moment of experiencing for an instant of no importance, no significance, just the seeing itself gone instantly and arising again and again. Nothing for anyone to do at all, just the seeing which arises by its conditions, sees what is visible now, the world at this moment, and gone.
And before seeing, it's there, arising and falling away, experiences the object which does not appear. Begin to be accustomed to that which has no object appearing, but there must be the reality which arises and experiences an object by way of being. Vipaka, the result of karma, conditioned moment of birth, and then on, and then experiencing the object through one doorway, and then again, no object appearing, and then object appears again through different doorways. That's all in life, no matter in what plane of existence. Otherwise, it's neglected. No one pay attention to understand that which is there. The characteristic of our reality, which just arises and experiences the object, no matter the object appear or not. It has to be there by conditions. Karma, conditions such moment as vipaka, to go on arising and falling away, even not experiencing any object appear to be known. So,
no room for anyone or anything at all, because it's just the moment of experiencing one after the other by conditions falling away, conditioning the next one. Very amazing and very wonderful to have the opportunity to hear the Buddha's teachings and to reflect that there is just one moment of citta, one vipaka after another, and interrupted by other cittas all through life.
and this is conditioned to get closer and closer to that which is there now, so close, like seeing, hearing, and whatever is there in life, all are there, so close right now.
Ajahn?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Sawadika. But this is frightening as well. The other day, there was a discussion between Tadao and John, and it was about personality. And John said there are only single streams of chitta, cetasika, rupa. And the thought came up, oh yes, that it must be like this, rising and falling away from aeons to aeons. But then next thought was, how frightening. There is nothing. There is emptiness. And I could see how strong the clinging to the idea of self is, because there is a bird, a flower, someone there, light, stars, streams. So what gives us the confidence in the teaching, and what the courage to go on listening?
Because it's thinking right now. And what is that thinking? What is the reality which is there almost all the time, even that it's thinking and not thinking. But when it's thinking, it's not known, because it's just thinking about the idea or concepts. Before thinking, there must be a reality which arises and falls away, experiences an object from moment to moment, unknown object, because the object does not appear. And then there is thinking. So what is the nature of that which thinks? Not the idea or the concept. It's there unknown. And it can be known no matter when it experiences the object appears, or the moment when object does not appear. And what is there? It's the object, it's the moment of understanding the reality which experiences no object appearing, because that object appears as it's a reality which experiences. And then when they see, it's that the same that arises and experience, but the object appears. So at moment of thinking, before thinking, the object does not appear. But at moment of thinking, the object is the idea or thought. And it's that again which experiences an object. But it's different from moment when the object appears and then the object does not appear. This is beginning to get closer to understand a reality, no shape, no form, nothing at all, only experiencing. No matter the object appears or not, thinking is there or not, seeing is there or not. So it's the moment of understanding thinking, the same as a moment of understanding seeing or hearing, touching. Otherwise, what else be understood? And what?
And Gabby, I think that you're right when you say that it's frightening because of clinging to the idea of self, clinging to the imaginary self that one doesn't want to lose. So it's actually the ignorance which is the condition, the ignorance and the clinging that conditions the dosa, the fear. And it's only the understanding now, the understanding at that moment that conditions more confidence and more courage and more kusala. That's why the paramis have to develop with understanding, because when there's understanding that it is just thinking now, thinking about the imaginary self, thinking about the flower or someone or something, when there's understanding, there's joy, there's lightness, there's no fear, no concern, no worry at all. But when there's clinging and ignorance, it just conditions the disturbance again and again. So the only answer is the understanding now, or the understanding then, that what is taken for self is just an idea, because there is only seeing now, hearing now, Chitta, Cetasika, and Rupa, that is taken for being this person or that person, my personality, another personality. In truth, there are just the different khandas conditioned to be the way they are, each one different, arising and falling away. That condition, the memory, the idea of this person or that person. So actually it's a letting go of the burden to understand that there are just different dhammas, no person, no being in truth at all. And the understanding conditions more and more confidence in what is true, what is right, less and less disturbance when one hears that there is no one here, there is no one there at all. Do you have any more comments? Not sure if you're speaking, Gabby, but we can't hear you, Gabby.
Yeah, I understand now. It's panya, which is the medicine for everything. Yeah.
And when there's not enough medicine, then there is doubts and wondering if there's enough courage and this and that. But when there is sufficient medicine and more understanding, then less doubt, less concern about how to follow the teachings or how to understand and so on, because the light makes it clear, all is revealed.
And it's nothing to be done because it's by conditions.
It's by conditions, nothing for anyone to do, and it's this moment. So the thinking now is just the thinking about self or flowers or giving up or carrying on, different ideas, all by conditions, all by accumulated tendencies. But there can be the understanding right now that it is just thinking, different from seeing, different from hearing. And as Ajahn said, it just takes time for the understanding to develop, for the confidence to develop. So even if there's a thinking, oh, maybe I'll give up, it's just a thought for a moment and then gone. Next moment, there can be understanding of that thinking or the doubt, because they're just different dhammas. Sita, do you have anything you would like to bring up today, or any further reflection on your discussion last week? We can't hear you either.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
good.
It needs a lot of consideration, and in the meantime, I was there are so many different in my reflect. There's so many different ways to understand Dhamma. Like when we say we take refuge in the Dhamma, that's another mind reflection. And then all the Dhammas, that is the rise and fall away, these are also, we call it also Dhammas. So I have to, there was one, I think there was one email, I've forgotten. It was written about the different understanding of Dhammas. That was why I was just reflecting and considering. Thank you, Sarah.
It seems that there are many ways, but actually the Buddha taught that really there's only one way. The only way is the understanding of the reality, the understanding of what is true at this very moment. So when he taught about Satipatthana, he was teaching about the direct understanding of whatever object appears now, no matter rupa, no matter kusala, no matter akusala, no matter feeling. And so the taking refuge in the Dhamma has to be the development of understanding that understands that there are just these different Dhammas at this moment. So no matter what language is used, no matter whether we're talking about khandhas or paticca samuppada or what we're talking about, there is only the truth that is to be understood by following the path, by following the development of the understanding that actually there's no one here at all. And you mentioned that there are different understandings. Of course, there are different understandings, and some are right and some are wrong. So it's only by getting closer to the truth now, understanding, seeing now, just the reality which sees now, hearing now, just the reality which hears, whatever appears now. This is the only way that there can be more understanding, more confidence in what is true, what is the right understanding of Dhamma, no matter whatever anyone says, or no matter what one reads or where one reads it. It's only actually through the understanding itself that it can be confirmed what is true and right.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
And
Hello,
I just
have a
add,
question. I'm sorry.
I'll just add a quick comment, Unli, if I may, before your question. I was going to add a quick comment to Gabby's remarks about the emptiness that is suddenly appreciated. It's a good word, emptiness, because Ajahn often explains sunyata as an aspect of conditioned dhammas. And it means that what's fallen away is gone, never to return. But the point I just wanted to make, Gabi, was that nothing has changed in fact, in reality. The way the world is the way it is. Of course, one's perception of it can change. but the underlying realities do not. And so I think you'll find with a bit of, as time passes, it's very easy to get accustomed to the idea that it is just realities arising and falling away, and no substantial self behind those realities, even though at first it might seem a bit scary. But as understanding develops, and I appreciate that you, or rather you appreciate the significance of the development of understanding here, it becomes clearer, and understanding cannot lead to, cannot be a condition for the kind of reaction you mentioned. It's because of our perception, our thinking about things is not necessarily founded on understanding, but the best way we can think about the way things are. And I think your reaction, others have had the same experience, but it doesn't last. Lee, please go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Phuntsara, for answering my questions regarding the Pakatu Panisaya. This situation also remind me of your answers that that kind of Panisaya as the broadest conditions. So, for example, in case of Ms. Gabi, can I say the intellectual understanding of the sunatas also maybe a conditions for feeling scary? So in some way, the intellectual understanding in this case, kusala, and due to Pakatu Panisaya, it conditions akusala feeling. So can you give your comments on that understanding?
It's possible. As we know, usually we talk about the accumulation of kusala, for example, understanding leading to more and more understanding, or anger leading to more and more anger. But there can also be the conditioning of kusala by akusala and vice versa. Akusala can be a condition for kusala, like one can behave in a mean manner or get angry, but there can be understanding or wise reflection, so and vice versa. But when we reflect on sunyata and then there is feeling of fear, it may be the wrong reflection on sunyata. So we can't say that every time we reflect on emptiness that it's kusala. It just depends at this moment. Like now, the seeing has fallen away, never to return. There can be understanding, wise reflection on how the seeing has gone, never to return, wisely or unwisely, with understanding or with fear, even when reflecting like that. Or death now, how death can come at this moment, can be a condition for understanding and wise reflection. Or there can be fear that death might come at this moment. So it depends. So we can see how very intricate conditions are. And we know that, as I mentioned to you, without ignorance, no kusala or akusala would arise in life at all. So whatever arises now is actually conditioned by ignorance and attachment. When ignorance and attachment has been eradicated, there's no more birth, no more arising of kusala at all. So conditions are very complicated, but the main point is to understand that what arises now. The feeling of fear, the annoyance, the clinging, the seeing, the hearing, whatever it is, it has to arise by different conditions. But I think it helps to understand when we're talking about Pakuntu Upanisya to understand how broad it is. So nothing that arises, no accumulation that arises is surprising. Like one might be reflecting on sunyata and on Dhamma, and then thinking with fear might arise unexpectedly, but nothing is surprising because it's by conditions, not by my wish or my control. And it's gone instantly. And next moment, there may be wise considering that it's just thinking that is thinking with fear at that moment. So it may be conditioned for understanding instantly. Who knows?
Yes, thank you very much. So,
thanks, Anli. Good
clear
points.
to me now that Pachya is very interesting. I think I have a little understanding more about the intricacies of conditions.
Yes.
Actually, I tend to maybe some I understand that the most important moment is now, and the most important thing is understanding now. So actually, I tend to avoid considering about Pachya, about conditions. For example, long ask raised questions on Ajahata Pachya, but I also refuse to give it any consideration. But just because your answer and many other texts I read mention such Pachya, so that's conditioned me to raise something on that particular cases.
And we may say, I refuse to give it any consideration, but then we read someone's question,
yes.
and by conditions there is consideration. Yes. So not by my wish or my refusal.
No
who
control
knows
at
what,
all. Yes.
Who knows what
no
there
control.
will be consideration of, and one may think, oh, one's not interested in this detail, and then there are conditions to consider it. But in truth, that it's not the name or the label, but it is the Dhamma now that is conditioned in different ways. Like when Ajahn was talking about the vipaka and the many moments of vipaka, experiencing an object unknown, the conditions for the arising of those cittas is different from the conditions for the arising of the thinking with fear or the clinging or the interest in this or that topic at this moment. So it's helpful to consider in order to understand with more and more confidence that there really is no one at all, no one that can refuse this or that, or decide to be interested in this or that, just dhammas performing their functions and falling away.
Yes. And the more we understand conditions, the less is a thinking of a self who can control, because whatever arises has many different conditions. So understanding a little more about details is helpful.
Yes, thank you. So by questioning and answering now, I also recognize that before I often also get some kinds of adosas when someone say that because once had so many sufferings in life, so that's why once begin to take interest in the Dhamma teachings, because I often thought it's wrong in terms of Pachya, but now I recognize that it can also be like that in the broadest sense of conditions. So thank you for correcting me. And
or by accumulations, we never know what will be a condition for the interest at this moment or that moment, even now. Who knows whether the next moment there will be kusala interest or akusala interest in what is being discussed, whether there'll be aversion to what is heard, or whether there'll be clinging, or whether there will be understanding of reality at this very moment. just depending on Prakatu, Panisya, Pachya and other conditions.
Yes. So I'm going to ask you another simple, very simple questions. Actually, the other day, Kun Abeto said that wherever there's a kusala, there will be metta. So I just want to confirm that point. Does adosa equals to metta? Because previously I thought that adosa had many manifestation, and metta is only one of the manifestation. So, for example, I thought that at the moment of sila, keeping sila, for example, or bhavana, maybe there's no characteristics of metta to be shown, but it seems that it contradict with what Kun Abeto said. So I just want to confirm that point.
I think he must have been talking about when beings are the object, but I'll let Alberto answer for him.
In general, panya conditions or all kinds of kusala, and without panya, we can just talk about kusala, but without understanding the reality, we're just talking about it. So it's panya which is which makes kusala grow, any kind of kusala, and including metta and karuna, mudita, and dana and sila. Without understanding, we can just talk about reality, but no, without any ground, any real basis for talking about it. And by understanding, it's the natural development of kusala. It grows and because the reality appears clearly, and reality appears as they are. So kusala appears ugly, appears dangerous, and appears something to avoid, and metta appears as something worthwhile having. And so it's the natural way of understanding to bring more, as Sarah was saying, more easing the life and situations and all that. I think that's what I meant when I say that it needs panya for metta or something like that. I'm not sure, but it's the condition for any kusala. I think without panya we can just talk about kusala, but it's just talking. It's no, because kusala is a reality and panya knows reality. So panya knows what we are talking about, and it makes more sense of everything every word of the Buddha which we heard and which we're beginning to understand. That's about it. Not sure if I made a bit more clear.
Yes, so wherever there are kusala, there must be metta as well, right? Because kusala chitta can arise with or without panya, but wherever there's a development of kusala, there must be development of metta at the same time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think also depends on the object, because people is not the object of every moment of chitta. So it can be kusala, and then maybe it's not can be called metta because there is no thinking about the reality or which is the chitta and chittazikas and
yeah.
yeah.
So a
How about
dosa
this?
arises with every chitta, only with every kusala chitta, but it's only the dosa is only metta when the object is other beings.
Okay.
So we cannot say
That's
that
clear,
a metta arises with every kusala chitta. Adosa arises with every kusala chitta, but not all adosa is metta, only when the object is other beings. So at the moment of understanding of reality, now adosa has to arise with panya, but no metta at that moment of understanding reality, at understanding seeing, for example.
Yes, it's clear. Thank you very much.
I think Alberto's general point is good, that the more understanding develops, the more metta develops. For example, you mentioned about how when people talked about suffering in life conditions, interest in Dhamma, and you used to find this annoying, but the more understanding, the less disturbed one is, whatever anyone says. If someone says something which seems to be wrong, then there's more understanding, more tolerance, more metta, because it's by conditions there is the right or the wrong thinking or annoyance or whatever it is that arises for the other. So what's the point of being disturbed when they say something that's not true? Any other points for Alberto or anyone else, Emily?
No. Yeah.
It's good that you checked and asked him about it. Otherwise, one can get a misunderstanding or it may seem strange. So it's good to discuss it. And Alberto, do you have any topics you would like to bring up today?
Yeah, there is about being close to the reality, which is here. Maybe I'm not clear about the different kind of reality, like it's here and now, like seeing is here and now, and visible object is here and now, and it seems I'm not sure whether it's when it's closed, the reality is it's here, or when it's yeah, if Ajahn can explain more about the seeing being here or being there, or where is the seeing, or where is the and where is the thinking, where is chitta, and where, because I can think seeing is closer than maybe thinking. I know I'm a bit confused about this topic. Maybe someone can talk more about it. What is seeing?
Ajahn, did you hear Alberto's question?
Yes. I think that if we try to understand just this or that, we cannot understand the nature of the reality, which is what we say, saying, for example, seeing, I mean. That's why we talk about seeing, hearing, smelling, thinking, all are the Dhamma, which experience the object. But is it clear about that, which experiences the object, even it's there right now? Just heard the word experiencing the object. But what about the understanding of the nature of that, which cannot be anything at all, only arise and experience? When it arises and experience, does anything else appear together with it? That's why whatever arises and experience is there as a chief of the world. Without it, how can there be any world or anything at all? That's why beginning to understand what is there is the reality, which now experience an object, no matter the object appears or not, but that reality arises to experience an object. That's why I begin to understand the moment when the object of experiencing appear and when it does not appear, to understand the reality which experiences an object. So when we talk about seeing, it's very easy to think about the difference between that which is seen and the reality which sees it, but no understanding of a reality which arises and experiences an object all the time from birth. No matter the object appears or not, it's arising and falling away by conditions, karma and other conditions too. Beginning to understand the reality which experiences without any object appearing, to understand the truth of only that which arises and experiences. We don't talk about anger, we don't talk about irritation, we don't talk about anything else, but talk about just the chief reality which arises and experiences an object. In order to understand moment of seeing, it's that which arises and experiences, but the object is different. Because when it is the object which is seen, it's that which impinges on the eye base. At that moment, there must be the reality which experiences by a different moment. For example, Pawanka, Atita Pawanka, Pawanka Chalana, Pawanka Upacheta, as the moment when object does not appear. And when the object appears, it is that which experiences the object, but it is different because it's the moment of beginning to know that there is a reality impinged on the eye sense or the ear sense and so on, but no word at all. It's just a moment of beginning to realize or to be aware or to know what is there. Just to know what is there, but no seeing it. So the next moment, it's the same reality which arises and is the chief of experiencing as when no object appears. But at that moment, it sees there is the object which condition that which arises to experience to be different one, to see different from moment when there's no seeing. Is that clear? The same reality arising and experiencing, but the object is different. No matter it's through eye door, ear door, or what doorway. That's why even at moment of thinking, if there's no understanding of the truth of what can be known as it is, what is the reality right there to be known one by one, at moment of thinking, what reality can be known? The thinking. It's the reality which arises and experiences no matter the object appears or not. But at moment of thinking of the object of that appears as the idea or thought about many different ideas, different from seeing. But the reality which arises and experiences is the same one, the chief of experiencing an object. But the object is different. So the function of each reality which experiences an object is different by conditions. For example, seeing cannot be bhavanga by conditions. But the characteristic of citta, which experiences the visible object, is that the same as the reality which arises and experience, but only the object is different. And the function of that citta is different because it sees, not just arise, to keep on the bhavanga, to go on by karma, conditions, and so on. That's why beginning to understand different ones, one reality as citta and cetasika, each different one, each different cetasika, and rupa, that's all in life. And even right now, when there is the understanding, no doubt about sunyata, because whatever is there just arises and falls away, never to come back at all. That is the meaning of sunyata, an aspect of anatta no one can control. It has to be by conditions. Whatever arises is conditioned to just arise. And after it has arisen, it falls away, never to come back at all. No conditions to have it coming back or arise again, and so on. And then when there is the understanding of a reality like citta, there can be the understanding of citta at moment when it performs different function. It has to be only that which arises and experiences an object. And the other factors like phassa and vedana and so on are different because they cannot be citta. They are different cetasikas. They have their own characteristic, different ones, and so on, beginning to understand what is meant by nama and rupa. And nama is not the word, but it is the reality which arises and experiences when it is there, arising and falling. That's all. Get closer to understand one reality at a time. The citta is not any cetasika, and it cannot be rupa, and it's there. So what can be known at moment of thinking? A reality which is there. And citta is the chief, the thinking itself, but attachment or aversion arising together are different reality, different cetasikas. Their characteristic can be known only when one characteristic appears, no matter it is dosa or attachment or what. But is there any understanding of dosa or lopa as just a reality different from the chief, the reality which experiences that object? And that is the moment of understanding what is there. Because we learned about nama, the reality which arises and experiences an object. One is the chief, citta, and the others are cetasikas. Different conditions at that moment to condition a moment of seeing or a moment of experiencing whatever. No doubt about the characteristic of nama and citta and cetasika. So at moment of seeing right now, usually no understanding of seeing, no thought about it. But when there is the understanding of no matter the object appears or not, there must be a reality arising and experiencing. Just like rupa, there is conditions for its arising. So nama has conditions for its arising and falling away. Only there are realities, no one at all. To begin to understand what is meant by a reality it's real, it's there by conditions. When there is the understanding of a reality, a citta, the chief of experiencing right now, no doubt about the past and the future moment of experiencing an object. No doubt about what should I think, what should I do, because no understanding of thinking. So no understanding of what are there at moment of thinking. The I is there. The attachment is there. Try to find out is there. See, these are realities that can be known little by little because it's so close. It's now, right now. It's not there. But right now, how can the citta appears without understanding that no matter what the object is, it's there. So even now, there can be moments without seeing, without hearing, without thinking. Before seeing, the citta does not see, it does not experience the visible object, but it arises and performs its function as usual. Each moment in life, eons and eons ago, it doesn't change. No matter how far in the future, when it's there, it experiences an object. This is the moment to letting go the idea of self and ignorance, not understanding what is there. So what we're talking about is right now so close. Where and when is ignorance so close? No understanding of seeing is there. Because there is seeing, and what is there after seeing? There must be the reality which experiences an object, but the object is unknown. And then there is the thinking about what is there in many ways. As I, or the wish to understand the reality, but it's not by wishing, but by hearing, considering again and again of the characteristic which now appears. Different. One experiences the object and the other is attachment. Anger or attachment is there, or feeling is there, memory is there. Different ones. They are there unknown until what is meant by refuse. Without refuse, to be away from ignorance and akusala, can there be understanding of what is there now as it is? That's why what is there can be known, can be learned, little by little, to be truthful to the truth. The point of hearing is just to understand the truth, the ultimate truth of what is there. It has to be as it is, arising and falling away unknowingly. Sometimes the object is known and sometimes the object does not appear, but there must be a reality which arises and experiences the same as moment of birth. The object does not appear, but is there, arising and falling away, to be known as it is that which is the chief of experiencing. It is not attachment, it's not anger, it's not memory, it's not anything, but it is that which now arises and experiencing an object, no matter the object appears or not. So there can be the understanding what is there. For example, understand this moment. What is there? The reality which experiences an object for sure, not the object. But if there is no understanding as the foundation to understand whatever is there, it's impossible to understand the reality which arises from birth non-stop, from moment to moment by conditions, performing different functions. When it sees, it's there, performing the function of seeing. When it's there, perform the function of ravachana, it's there performing that function, but its nature, its characteristic is only the chief of experiencing, while the other Chaitasikas arising with it, performing the function together. And this is the refuge, the understanding of the truth, to be away from ignorance and attachment. Now, after seeing, it's there. Ignorance and attachment. And asava, depending on conditions. But each one is different. Because citta cannot be other thing. One Cetasika, lopa cannot be other thing. It has to be as it is, no matter when it arises. This is the way to let go ignorance and attachment, because understanding more and more a little about the truth of each reality as it is. So now,
I think we've lost the sound, Ajahn. We can't hear you now.
Are you there, Ajahn? We can't hear your voice at the moment. I think Ajahn is having a problem with the audio, so we should perhaps continue the discussion among ourselves until she's able to make a connection again.
I'll just add one comment into Alberto's question about being close to reality. Close, of course, is just a word, but it's just signifying what appears now. For example, we can talk about metta in a particular situation or in a reference to a different occasion, but it's not metta that is close, it's not metta that appears. But now, when thinking kindly or helping others or being friendly, the metta itself can be understood now because it's close, it appears. And the same with anger. We can talk about anger when killing in Ukraine, or anger in reference to this or that story, but it's not the anger that appears or can be known. But when anger arises now, or when irritation arises now, it's close, it appears, it can be known. The same with seeing or hearing or any other reality. So it's just referring to what appears, what can be known directly, as opposed to just thinking about in the context of a story. Any other comments, Albert?
Yeah. So where is, like, a question like where is seeing? It means it's close. The question where is like it's asked because it is close, so it's here because it is close.
Yeah, it's here and now, because in other words, it's at this very moment. So the characteristic of the seeing now can be understood. It can appear right now. So it's not a term or reality in the book or that happened yesterday. It's right now. So that's just what is meant by close or here and now, whereas seeing right now, close at hand. That's all that it's meant.
Something closer to be here. It can be far. If it's close, it has to be here.
It just means
it's like very far away. Otherwise, it wouldn't be close.
We're not talking about the seeing that arose yesterday or the seeing that someone experienced in the text. We're talking about the reality that can be known at this very moment. So that's all that is meant by close or here and now. It means the seeing at this moment, the characteristic of the seeing which can be known, not at another time or another occasion, not a matter of going to wait until we're on retreat or when the dog isn't interrupting, or it's at this very moment.
And Ajahn was mentioning that ignorance is the closest reality.
Because it's always now.
Yeah.
So we think of the ignorance when someone has the wrong understanding or asks this or that question, but what about the ignorance even at this moment while listening to Dhamma? The ignorance at this moment when there's no understanding, very, very close. That's all that is meant by close. I think our time is up, so I don't know if you are there, if you're able to speak, Ajahn. Otherwise, I think we will just finish up and continue next week. Okay, so we'll just say thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Sadhika to Ajahn. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you.
กราบเท้าท่านอาจารย์ค่ะ อนุโมทนาค่ะ คุณ
Thank you,
สราญ
everyone.